I'm Brett Clark, and by now you know what I'm here for. Ghosts and booze. That's why I made it a point to quit everything I'm doing to venture out and visit some of America's most haunted pubs, bars, and distilleries. No night investigations. These are just good old-fashioned ghost stories straight from the owners and staff themselves. Maybe even told over a brew or 2, 3, 4. Because this is Haunt Hops. It's the Halloween season, and I'm smack dab in the middle of the birthplace of moonshine and stock car racing. Join me as I go into Dooleys Tavern.
I'm Seth Cohn. I own Dooleys and Two Boros Brewery here in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. We also have Mother Earth Foods and Cafe, and we're looking forward to the new brewery expansion over in Wilkesboro on 421 for Two Boros Brewery, Smokin' Joe's Cigar and Bourbon Lounge, and the Yadkin River Outfitters. Yeah. We started off in opening our doors in January of 2020.
Okay.
We all know what happens in March of 2020. Yeah. We were 3 months into it, had 11 different beers brewed. We were really excited to finally open our doors with our own beers. We were well received here in Wilkesboro, and then we get shut down. So we were fortunate enough that the community is great. When the pandemic hit, instead of going out and buying a bunch of domestic beers off the grocery store shelves, they were coming out and supporting your local brewery and buying everything that they could from us at that point. We produced a whole line of different beers that people absolutely loved, and one of my favorite things to do is the artwork with the cans. So our local artist David West, a friend of ours from since we were in middle school, high school, we reached out and said, "Hey David, here's some ideas that we have. When you come walking by and you see one of our cans, you pick it up and you're just like, that's really cool."
Tell me about these beers. What does each one bring to you?
So they're all just a little bit different approach. My personal favorite is our Bikini Bottom Pineapple IPA. It is a gluten-free pineapple IPA. It's not your traditional IPA, so we have a lot of people come in, I don't like IPAs, I'm not going to drink that.
Yeah.
And they'll try it and they're like, this is good. I can actually drink this. It's not really bitter. It's not really hoppy. It's just got great flavor to it. We use real pineapple in it. I think we put about 50 pounds of pineapple into it when we're making it. So it's got not overly powerful from it. It's not a sour beer, but it's got that good balance between the sorghum and the pineapple, which makes it gluten-free to make a little bit of sweet and sour on it. The most mass-produced beer that we've had has been the Last Lap Lager, which we brewed for North Wilkesboro Speedway. With the revitalization of North Wilkesboro Speedway, we were able to get together and partner up with them and said, hey, look, you're coming back, you're bringing this back to the community. We're your local brewery, we want to do something special for all those race fans coming back. And so we did this. It's kind of hard to describe. It's a retro can. It's got the red, white, and blue on it. And so it's really just makes you feel about that whole racing segment about it. You just feel connected to it. But what's great is kind of hidden in the label is the old North Wilkesboro Speedway label on, or the wall that's hidden there. So when you're sitting at the Speedway and you're actually looking out at the track, it says North Wilkesboro Speedway. We incorporated that into our can. And the reason we did that is our driver, Dylan Wilson, who runs for my race team, Two Boros Performance Shop, we had already partnered up on a couple different opportunities, and that would have been the Neon Lager here. It's the only beer that I'm aware of that has a late model stock car on it, and Dylan's been a big part of that. You can actually see him right there with the little reflection in it.
Nice.
But we did it for him and being part of the Cars Tour, which we race full time in. Your favorite's the Mystery Machine from looking at the can.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect.
It is a throwback to my youth and the kids. We all grew up watching Scooby-Doo and having fun. And the reason we came up with the name and the Mystery Machine, we really didn't know what was going to go into them all the time when we first started out. So we said, well, let's just call it a Mystery Machine because you don't know what you're going to get each time you do this this batch. So kind of similar to other breweries do where they do like a rotating hop series. We did the same thing, but this one was the most popular one that we did was this flavor. So we've kind of stuck with the Mystery Machine on this flavor since then. It's a light orangish beer. It's got a really good flavor to it. It's not your heavy IPA, but it's a nice fruity IPA in it at the same time. Of course, almost all of our labels, with the exception of like Dylan, they all focus on having a burro or a donkey in it.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that was because we sat around for probably 6 months trying to come up with a name for our brewery. And one day I was running for county commissioner, and I looked at my brother and Trey, our brewmaster, and I said, what about Two Boros? And Trey goes, well, that's not fair. You're the brothers, there's two of you. I'm not a brother. I'm like, no, not two brothers, Two Boros. He's like, I don't get it. And I said, Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, what better way to bring the town together than pizza and beer? And they said, love it. That's the name of our brewery and pizzeria. We're running with it, never thought twice about it, and it's just taken off from then. We're working on some ideas for Halloween, being that's coming up for Halloween again. And a couple years ago, I was talking to David about what we wanted to do with the artwork for that can, and it was kind of almost taking our existing Boro, which is again where the donkey logo comes from, and saying, well, we're going to take the donkey and make him into more of a Nightmare Before Christmas
Oh, that's
theme.
slick.
So it's kind of stripped all the way down to the bone. You've got the moon in the background.
That's too cool.
And we just, like I said, to me, the big part is having fun with the labels, not just with the beer. So our Boro's name is actually Don Quixote, Donkey.
Oh, no.
Yep, so that's where we came with that. And we have a Don Quixote Mocha Stout that we do. We're in the process of brewing it again. You got the Don Quixote is dressed up just like you would think from Don Quixote. And he has a little windmill in the background, similar to what you would see from the cartoons growing up. So my youth plays a lot into what I do with our cans and our brewing and the whole operation as a whole. I'm really just a big kid at heart. Except now I'm a big kid that can actually drink beer. Yeah, so probably our flagship and our best beer is our Good Gold Almighty. We brewed that for my brother's wedding. I'm a Monty Python fan too. So that was actually the very first beer that we did. And we did the autumnal brown ale and the Good Gold Almighty, followed by the Bikini Bottom. And those are our first 3 ones out. So we're really just finally excited to be in this new location, getting ready to start brewing, kick it off on our full mainstream level that we really have been trying to get to for the last 2 years. I'll give you a little random fact about this room you're sitting in.
Oh, yeah,
so
hit me.
Right over here in that corner was the original conception of NASCAR.
No way.
Yes, so it was started in April of 1947.
Shoot.
Unexplained had a race that he was hosting, was expecting around 3,000 people to come up and visit this dirt track they had just built. He called up Bill France Sr., said, hey, Bill, come down to this. I want to show you this, that what we're doing. Well, we're expecting around 3,000 people for this dirt race coming up. We really would like you to be a part of it and see what we got going on. Bill came up, he came to the track. They had 10,000 people show up for this race, for a little dirt track race in April of 1947.
Yeah.
He looked at him and said, Enoch, you have something here. We need to go back and discuss this. So they came back here to this room, which was the Smithy Tavern. It was Nike Smithy's hotel. And it was the Smithy Hotel at the time, the Wilkes Hotel, Smithy Hotel. It's kind of different names from what it was.
Okay.
But Enoch came over to meet over here with him. It was Charlie Combs, Enoch Staley, Jack Bruner, Alvin Hawkins, just a few of the founders of NASCAR, and of the tracks, I should say. And they came in and sat down with Bill France Sr. They laid out all the different groundwork for this. And then 9 months later, they went down to the Streamline Hotel in Daytona, met with all the track owners and the teams, and that's where NASCAR was actually born at. So we were up here having a NASCAR corporate group up here when they were doing their racetrack revival and going through all of their planning. We were telling the story to them, and Jessica Fickenser looked and said, Seth, you know what we should call this? I said, no, what? She said, we can't call it the birthplace of NASCAR because that's the Streamline Hotel, but it can be the conception of NASCAR because it was 9 months preceding the birth of NASCAR.
Nice.
So that's one of my next projects I'm working on, is getting it listed on the Historical Registry.
That's
since
great.
we actually have a racetrack back here in North Wilkesboro again that we're racing at. If we would have known at the time what we had when we started remodeling this building, then I would have left the original wallpaper up and everything. But it was, it was from the 40s, so that wallpaper hadn't been touched since the 70s when we started doing this remodeling. So we were like, yeah, this has got to go. So what we're really here for?
Let's
some
get
beers and some ghost stories.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're here for.
This is great. I appreciate the mystery machine, and
like I said, I get to have a bikini bottom because it's gluten free. So it's a really, really good beer to begin with. So
cheers.
Oh yeah,
that's really
good beer.
It's an awesome environment you got here, and it's a cool place because when you drive up, it's like, this isn't your everyday tavern.
It's not, and that's what we get from people when they come in. People would come in and they would try our food and they'd be like, man, I don't care what anybody says, this isn't a bar. You've got the best food around here. We grind our meat fresh in-house. We hand patty our burgers. We slow roast our own roast beefs, turkeys. We hand cut our own fries and chips. And we make it all in-house. So when you're getting it, it is real fresh homemade food at that point.
It is good food. I had your stuffed jalapeno burger, and that was pretty. And your pimento cheese.
Oh yeah.
Is that homemade? House
It
made?
is. We make it all in house. So the thing about that pimento cheese is people think pimento cheese cold, out of the fridge somewhere, and as you found out the hard way probably, you get it and it's this warm, gooey cheese, and it's just almost like a dip.
Yeah.
And when you're starting to get into it, you're like, I don't know about this. But then the first bite, you're like, oh man, I gotta eat more of this.
Oh, dude.
Like, I do not like pimento cheese, and this has ruined me now because I wasn't a fan of it to begin with. But then after trying this, I'm like, there's no other pimento cheese I'll eat out there.
We're up here in this, what used to be the hotels. Yep. And what makes it even better that goes along with the mystery machine is you've had some mysterious things happen here, I understand.
Absolutely. Let's see, where to even start, truthfully. So my dad bought this building, the Smithy building, in 1993. It was called the Auction of the Century. It was on the front page of the New York Times, Town for Sale. The proprietor had passed away, and at the time it was a local attorney. He did not draw his will up correctly, and everything went up to auction at that point. His father-in-law was Knight Smithy, who had at the time owned about 85% of Wilkes County. He owned quite a bit, but he was a great businessman. He was one of those people you walk up and he would literally give you the shirt off his back. Knight lived in this hotel upstairs with his wife and his 2 daughters. And at the time when my dad bought the building, we knew it was significant because it's like the boardwalk of Wilkesboro. If you ever played Monopoly, you got your boardwalks, you got your park place, you got all the rest of them. So to us, the Smithy building is boardwalk, and then we got Park Place right across the street over here at 2 Boros. When we got in here, the floors were it hadn't been used as a hotel since the 70s. Okay. They still had everything was still original in here. The downstairs was still being used as the department stores, but when we got up, the floors were starting to warp. It was just neglected over the years because nobody was really using it at that point. And it was just sitting here. The only thing that was being used is the main level. So Dad came in, he bought the building, we started remodeling it. He had a great idea of what he wanted to do with the bed and breakfast up here, wanted to do the restaurant downstairs. He moved his health food store he's a holistic and medical doctor, so we're very big in natural, and he's a naturopath. So we're really big into holistic, so he wanted to bring the health food store from over at our other location to bring down here. We changed the name to Mother Earth, and that's where that all came from. I liked to run around here when I was a kid. I was probably at the time I was 10, 12 years old or so when we started getting in this building. And so I was still young and I would just run around and play. And one day, one of the tenants downstairs, it was a florist shop, and Joseph looked at my mom and said, "Sue, you need to get your kids under control. I can hear them running all around upstairs." And my mom's like, "The kids are in school." "No, I hear them running around upstairs." "Well, these are 2-foot thick ceilings and walls. And I mean, it's a very sturdy building. So to hear somebody running around is very hard to do to begin with from the downstairs. So they would come up and they would look around and make sure nobody's up here. Nobody's up here, but they would hear children running all around the halls up and down here. So that was probably one of the first stories that we had that actually happened. Many times we would be here and we have our water goblets. They'd be face down on the table. We'd wash them. We'd run through a high pressure dishwasher. We'd have a dishwasher back there that was actually scrubbing any lipstick or anything off of it. And then they would have to dry them. So there wouldn't be water spots, and we'd put them out on the table. And we'd always put them face down overnight so no dust would settle into it being an old building. And then the next morning we'd come up and these water goblets would be flipped up. It looks like somebody was drinking out of it. Sometimes there'd be lipstick on them. Silverware was always full. You have your knife and spoon, your forks. They would be come in and would be set up the same way, just like they should at a dinner table.
Yeah.
And they'd be folded with linen napkins, would be folded into a fan shape. And then you would come in the next day and the napkins would be laid across the chair like somebody was sitting there with it in their lap. The silverware would be crossed, signifying that they were done with their meal. The water goblets would be flipped up and there'd be lipstick on them. Have people who say, and it was this blue room right here as you're walking down the hallway. It's the first room right outside Nike's room. And always would say the same story would be told by different customers who had no idea who the other customers were. They say this tall, slender man with his light suit would stop by the door, jiggle the handle, take his skeleton keys, and he always had this big skeleton key set. He would stop and he would try to lock the door, jiggle the handle to make sure it was locked, and then continue walking on by. Or like it was shut in doing that. We always kept our doors open. They all would point to the same man as they were leaving. They'd point and say, "That's him right there." Well, that's Knight Smithy. Knight's been dead for 30 years now at this point, 20 years, 30 years. So that couldn't have been him. No, we're telling you, that was the man right there who just came by our room. And everybody would always point out Nike and say that's what it is. Now, the reason for that story is because that was the daughter's rooms. Both his daughters lived in that room. And so Nike would stop by every night and check to make sure that his daughters were locked into the room. Now, they could unlock her from the inside and get out, but nobody could get in. And the reason why is because this is a hotel. So he would always make sure his daughters were locked up safely before he would go to bed at night and make sure that they were taken care of. So the same story would be told by different people over this time that we had the Torrey Oak restaurant, that Nike would stop in, check to make sure the door was locked, and then continue walking. We had a young lady who was here serving that night. She was the only woman that was here in the restaurant, and our dishwasher was in the back doing dishes. Our maitre d' was down here, and our head chef, who was a woman, I should say, actually, was down here in the bar. And Tim, who was doing the maitre d' and the head server, he was in another room setting up. She looked, and she was setting everything up, and she heard somebody say, "You need more spoons." And she's like, "Okay, sure." Kept on doing her thing. And they said, "You need more spoons." And so she looked, and sure enough, she was out of spoons. So she went to the back, and she's like, "What did you say?" And Tim's like, "I didn't say anything." Karen's sitting down here. "I didn't say anything." She said, "Yeah, you did. You said we need more spoons." She heard a woman's voice very clear say, "You need more spoons." And so she went to the back. Sure enough, she was out of spoons. It was a Sunday night. We were closing up downstairs in Dooleys. It was about 8 o'clock. Our motion sensors start going off on our cameras up here. And I was like, I get a notification. I was like, all right, that's weird. Somebody's upstairs. I walk up the stairs. I walk through. Can't find anybody up here. Go back downstairs, continue closing up the restaurant. 9 o'clock, we're getting ready to walk out the door. My motion sensors go off again. I was like, all right, hold up. Called my managers back, said, let's go upstairs. Somebody's got to be up there. Let's go see who's up there. You guys take one side, I'll take the other. We'll walk around the circle and we'll meet in the middle. So we did. Couldn't find anybody. Went up to the third floor, checked up there, made sure there was nobody up there. Continued on to walk around the building just for an extra 5 minutes or so. Couldn't find anybody hiding, couldn't find anything. So I said, all right, let's go on home. So we left. 10 o'clock, my motion sensor started going off again.
Oh, shoot.
And so I'm watching on cameras. I don't see anybody in here. And I was like, all right, something's going on there. Maybe it's just a bat flying around. Who knows, setting off the cameras, just trying to be rational about it.
Yeah.
Well, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke my wife up because my motion sensors just will not stop dinging. And I'm looking at the camera and I'm like, half asleep. And I was like, I need somebody to verify this. I was like, Ashley, wake up and look at this. I watched this for a good couple minutes and I woke my wife up and she was looking at it. She's like, no, I'm not dealing with that. Don't freak me out in the middle of the night. I'm going back to sleep and pretend like I did not see that. And she rolled over and went back to sleep. And at that point, I was like, I got to record this. So I flipped on my recording and I started recording and I got about 15 seconds of the recording and everything stopped.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, and that was it. It's almost like it knew the presence knew that it was something was going on, and they stopped completely.
When we were here,
oh yes,
we were in the, I guess it's that dining area.
It's the main dining room, correct?
Yeah,
it leads into the kitchen.
And we were talking. You were just you were continuing telling me about a little bit about the history up here. And I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye in that door, which is it the bakery?
So that goes into our bake kitchen, correct? We have a wait station and bake kitchen.
Okay, that door was flapping like someone had walked through.
I saw some movement out of the corner of my eye, and this door was flapping.
Carrie had an interesting story. She apparently experienced something at the same time that we were up here and saw the doors flapping. Has all your staff encountered something here and there?
I don't know if every person has, but I will tell you the staff will not be alone upstairs. Like when we have to come up to our safe and lock the money up at night, the manager who's doing it runs up the stairs, puts it in, and runs right back down. They don't hesitate. They don't like coming up here alone. I've never had a bad experience up here. I've been here for 30 years.
Okay.
And I've never had bad experiences up here. It's always been friendly ghosts. Everything that we've ever heard from other people have always been helpful or friendly. They like to be left alone and make their presence known, but they don't bother you. They don't harass you. They're not giving you this scare feel, but you will feel the hair on the back of your neck almost stand up like somebody's looking over your shoulder. And I get that all the time, and I'm very comfortable up here, but I've never physically seen a spirit up here or anything like that. But I've had feelings numerous times where I feel like somebody is right behind me or somebody's looking at my shoulder, and I'll turn around, nothing there. There's been numerous different stories of the people who are the spirits here, whether it's Miss Smithy, Mr. Smithy, hotel guests, nurse. The town nurse used to live here, and she'd walk up and down the streets, and you'll hear that story told by RG and some of the other ones. But there's a lot of those stories that all started from this centralized location of right here.
Yeah.
We've had people say, oh, well, it's the ghost from being hung outside the tree, But again, it's never been a bad one that we've ever had really here.
Have you had like experiences like this before, like prior to being here, or is this the first time? Really?
Never really had much ghost experience prior to that, or spirit experience prior to that. This is definitely when I've had more. 90% of mine has always come from here. Well, I've gone to Louisiana, and you hear stories about New Orleans. I've gone to Georgia. I've gone to Outer Banks, and you hear all these stories, and I've never really had experiences like that.
Yeah.
But here, you really have those experiences.
Okay.
There definitely have recessed some over the years. You don't have as much, and maybe it's just because we don't use this space as often.
Gotcha.
Before, I was up here 5-6 nights a week. I was up here all the time. Now we're only using for private events, so we're not up here. Now my office is up here on the opposite corner of this building, and I'm up here all the time, and I'll hear things, I'll feel things, but never do I have experiences like I have when we were open for the restaurant. So I think the activity of the restaurant definitely increased the spirit world activity.
Okay.
But since then, there's still things that happen, but they don't happen as common.
What you've got here, man, is it's perfect. I think you like hit at the right time, and you got a good thing going, and I hope it continues to progress. Yeah, I appreciate the Mystery Machine, and folks, come to Dooleys, try his beer, all of them if you can, and the desserts, the food is just, I can't say enough. It's just awesome. I really appreciate you letting me come back out here and hear your stories. Or I don't like to say stories, I like to say encounters, because stories are something,